Dreams, as you know, they never make any sense. And my dream, this one, did. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Was a story. And I never get those. So I woke up and I told my girlfriend at the time, I was like, I had a really odd dream, which is a story. She goes, oh really? So I told her the story. She goes, that's a good story, you should write it. And I was like, okay. And this is me with no experience of writing anything. I never even written a short story in my life. So the next day I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try this thing. So seriously, the next day I decided to try writing the first chapter. I didn't know if this would be a book, would be a short story. I just decided to write this dream. And this is a dream that's got nothing to do with crime. So I start writing this, and I go, you know what, this is weird. I never wanted to write anything, but if I am going to write a story, I can probably come up with a much better crime story because of my experience as a crime psychologist than I can with this crazy goddamn dream. So I just cursed inside the church. You guys know that, right? I'm doing now. So I was like, okay, so I decided to write the first chapter of this crazy dream and come up with the first chapter of a crime story. But I didn't have the story in my head at all. I just said, what would be a good opening chapter for a crime book? And that was it. Just came right then I started writing this first chapter. No story. And I finished and gave the first chapter of the dream to my girlfriend and the first chapter of the crime story. And she was like, the crime story is bad. It's like, of course, because you kill somebody in the first chapter, that's it. Interesting story. And then I carry on writing the crime story, wrote 3 chapters, gave it to her. She goes, it's really good, she carried on. It became the Crucifix Killer. So that first story it started my career as a writer. And then I wrote 13 books. So, because the story of the dream comes out in every interview I do, right? It's going to come out of those whole story again. It comes out in every interview I do. When I was touring Germany, I think 2022, 2023. I always travel with somebody from my publishing house, the person that does the interview with me, and a person that reads the book, because in Germany they like to read the chapter of the book, right? And they will do that like 4 times through the night. They love that. So I read no German, so they bring an actor to do it for me. So we were traveling, I think we were going from Hamburg to Berlin, and they were like, Chris, you always tell the story of this dream. Do you remember the dream? I was like, I do, of course. I said, what is a dream? I told them the dream, and they were like, damn, you should write this, really. So then I did the same here to my editor in the UK, and she was like, you should write this. Now, I was getting the opinion, not of my girlfriend, but from people in the business of publishing. You know, editors and people from publishing houses going, you should write this. And this is it. So Hide and Seek is the dream that I had 17 years ago, that it started my career as a crime writer, right? It's finally the dream. So that's why I decided to write the book. Very colorful profession-wise. So I was a criminal psychologist, and I was a professional guitarist, and I was a stripper in the stripping dance thing, and now I'm a writer. So when you go from criminal psychology to music to stripping to writing a book, people want to know, how did this happen? How did you go from one thing to the other? So this story comes every time. So the writing thing is the only profession that I ever stripping with it, but it was the only profession that I never thought I would ever write. Writing was not, most people, everybody who wants to be an author, right? Or you always get into the love for what you want to be when you're a kid, isn't it? Like, I used to play football when I was a kid, so I always wanted to be a football player. People who want to be authors, they probably read a lot when they were young, right? And that's how they got the love for books, and then they go, you know what, this is what I want to do when I grow old. I want to write the same stories I remember reading. I was not that kid. Right? So you're gonna move cities, you go, yeah, let's do it, because you don't care, right? That's one thing that makes it easier for you to move is if you're young. The other thing is that if you're single, right? Because if you're gonna move to a different country and start everything again from scratch, you will struggle for a little bit, right? You might have to sleep rough, you might have to get a place that's very cheap because you don't have a lot of money, have some crap jobs. I've worked as everything. I cleaned bathrooms before, I handled flyers, flipped burgers. I did everything. Just, you need money, I'll do any kind of work. When you're single, you can do anything. You can, eat scrap and just go for it. But for you to have to ask your wife or your partner, do you want to eat scrap with me? That makes it harder. So when you're already in a situation with family or in a couple, for you to move and start your life again, it makes it harder because it's not you alone. You have to ask somebody else to do the sacrifice with you, right? And you don't know if it's going to work. Every time I moved, I didn't know if it was going to work. When I moved from Brazil to America, I didn't know if it would work. And then when I came to England, again, it was a gamble. It paid off in the end, but it was a gamble. But then again, it's like I struggle a lot. There was a time that I was pretty much homeless. I slept in the park for 2 nights. I couldn't do that if I was with someone. So I think a lot of that came into the book when I was writing the character of Sam. Yeah. I think so. No, I already did. I changed.
Yeah.
No. I think this is it. I'm too old to change it. Like I almost moved again to Berlin. During the lockdown, I was thinking about it, but then exactly that I was like, I don't know if I can have the energy to do all this again, because I've done it like twice. I was like, I know everything that it takes. It was like, do I have the energy to start everything from scratch? Like no friends, The only difference, which would make it even harder, is when I moved from Brazil to America, and America, I spoke the language. I already spoke English when I moved from Brazil to America. But moving to Germany, my German is 9. Nothing. Got nothing. So there you'll be too. And then the older you get, the harder it is for your ear to pick up the sounds. So you don't really learn as much. And I am half deaf because I was a musician for many years. And when I was in music, we didn't have earpieces because now if you go see any band, they all have earpieces, right? So the monitor, the mix of the music comes straight in their ears, and there's no problem. Back then, we had monitors in front of the stage, right? And those bring the sound to you, right? So basically, you're hearing a mix, which can get really bad. I remember a story from Duran Duran. Everybody knows who Duran Duran is here. Is there any millennials? So Duran Duran, if people don't know, it was a very, very big band in the 80s. And I remember that they tell me a story that said for the first 2 years of their career, they said we couldn't hear anything we played on live because the girls that screaming on the front row were too fucking loud for them to. And they say we just played it because we heard so much that we knew the chords. We knew how we couldn't hear anything. So when you play like that, everything is very loud. Anything outside work, they will be networking. They will be talking to you, and then they will include something. Everything has to be productivity in America. The culture there. It's very much like you got to be making money all the time. Just relaxing and like taking it easy, that doesn't exist. So in America, yes, but money talks and bullshit runs the marathon there. It's a very true thing.